So we've already frozen enough corn for the next year. So today we'll be teaching you guys how to make tomato juice. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is start with a buttload of fresh tomatoes. All of these were grown in our family gardens, and I think we started with a 5-gallon bucket. And so you take the tomatoes straight out of the garden, and then the first thing you're gonna wanna do is we just have the sink filled with some water, and we're gonna put it in there and rinse it off, wash it off really good, and then once you've got it washed, move it over here to this side of the sink. And these are where our clean tomatoes are. And then I have right now my mom over here, and she's working on cutting the cores out of the tomatoes. So basically, you're just gonna wanna cut out this little piece right here, and there'll be a little bit of white stuff on the inside, and you'll cut that out too. If you see any bad spots, like right here, there's a mushy spot, you're gonna wanna cut that out as well. And then we just put the trash all in a big bowl, and the bits of tomato we're gonna cut up and put them in a pot to be boiled. If you watched our corn video, you already met our #1 little helper, Mason, who is very skilled in all of the art of putting up fresh vegetables. And then you have to meet this new little helper down here, Dixon, as he goes to take a nap under the table. Say hey to everybody, buddy. And we also have a couple of extra helpers today. This is Emma, who is also very knowledgeable in all of the fresh vegetable game, as she has a garden of her own. And back here by the back door, because he wants to live outside, we have Tucker. You need to get out the white bits when you're coring the tomato. These little pieces right here are what I'm talking about. You just pull those out with a knife really quick, and the only reason that you're wanting to get those out is just because they're a little bit more bitter than the rest of the tomato, and you don't want it to take away from the sweetness of your juice. Okay, so once you have your pot nice and filled with big chunks of tomatoes about this size, you're just gonna wanna kind of get down in the pot, and we're gonna cook these to get most of the juice out. But before then, you're just gonna wanna squeeze them. Just like that, except you're gonna wanna do it down in the pot so that you make the least amount of mess as possible. So after you've got your tomatoes down to about this consistency, and you can see how much good and natural juice is coming out of them right there. Then you can go ahead and put the tomatoes on the burner. One thing that you should know is that you never ever want to add water to these, because they have such a nice, natural, juicy consistency, and we'll get so much good, just pure tomato juice out of these. Now that we've got all of our tomatoes squished down, cut up, cored, and in the pot, we just put them on and it'll start boiling. You can see that this pot is already bubbling up just a little bit. And so this will start boiling, and once it reaches a good point, you will turn it off and put all of the tomatoes through a food mill to get out all of the skins, all of the seeds, and you'll be left with just tomato juice. This pot is almost ready for canning, and this pot is not. So the way that you're gonna tell the difference is if we take a spoon and start stirring, then you can see, like here for example, the skins on the tomatoes in here have started separating from the tomatoes themselves. And so once you get to a point where you can see a lot of those skins have separated, that's when you can really start juicing the rest of the tomato. in this pot, you can see that the tomatoes are still a lot chunkier. You can see the skin is still on right there. And so that is not ready yet, but we're just gonna let this pot keep cooking while we start juicing the other pot. So now that our tomatoes are ready for canning, we went ahead and got out the food mill that we're gonna run the tomatoes through. We've always used the original Foley food mill. I think this works better than anything else that you can use right now. It's kind of a basic old standby that we've always used when we're doing this. And to put it together, you just slip the handle through the top like so, and then screw that in on the bottom. That creates a nice little spinning action, and what you're gonna do is there's a little lip right here, and you kind of dip some tomatoes in right there and then spin this, and it flattens it around and gets all of the juice out and leaves all of the skins in here. Parts of the juicing process. As you can see, we're down to the bottom of the pot and it's mostly juice now, so you can just pour all of it in the food processor or food strainer at one time, and so much juice just runs straight into the pot. After you've got all of the tomatoes juiced, you'll end up with a final product that looks about like this. And then once you've got it to this point, you can go ahead and boil this, and then we'll skim some foam off the top and start putting it in jars. Now you can see that there's a little bit of foam coming up to the top of the tomato juice right here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait until more of that is there, and then we just skim that off the top. And once that is off the top and no more foam is being created, we can start putting the juice in jars. Tricks whenever we're making tomato juice is a trick that my grandma taught us a while ago, where instead of going through the whole process of sterilizing the jars and boiling them and all of that after you get the juice in them, you can make them seal a different way. What we normally do is we get clean jars that have been sterilized in the dishwasher, and we put them in hot water in the sink. Get the water as hot as you possibly can. And then as far as the lids, we just put them in a little pot over here and get them boiling. And then we'll take one hot pot, put the hot tomato juice in it, one hot jar, put the hot tomato juice in it, put a hot lid on top, screw a ring around it, and then you wait and you listen for a pop, and when it pops, it means it's sealed. The next part of the process is probably my favorite part because I've been doing it since I was about 8 or 10 years old, because it's the only part that my grandma trusted me to do when I was that age. And what we do is we typically get a teaspoon of salt and we put that straight in the jar. And then we go ahead and get a teaspoon of sugar and we put that straight in the jar as well. And then that's all we do except for our tomato juice that we have boiling. And so we just start adding it with a ladle, one scoop at a time. So once you finish, you're gonna end up with a final product that looks about like this. We ended up with 10.5 quarts today, but that's totally random as to how many quarts you're gonna get. It depends on so many things, how much rain you've got, what type of tomatoes, and many other things. But out of our 5-gallon bucket of tomatoes, we ended up with 10.5 quarts today.